What? What?
This is sacrilege!
What do you? This is not how you do this?
I mean, you are not paying respect to the baguette, actually.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Dash.
To the baguette.
We'll take it from here. Hello, everybody. We are Chips et Noir, the French shoutcasters, and we will be your host for today.
Yeah, thank you for watching this day. This is the pinnacle of the season 9. This is the 10th year anniversary of League of Legends. We are really delighted and happy to welcome you here in Paris. This day will be crazy. The crowd will be crazy. So thank you for watching. We wish you a great League of Legends 2019 Grand Finals and see you after.
Paris prepares to roar with an entire year of blood, sweat, and tears as an LEC champion on home soil aims to bring the Summoners Cup back to its passionate fans for the first time since the trophy's inception. G2 Esports must stand tall against the powerhouses Fun Plus Phoenix, who have every intention of proving naysayers wrong and doing what others could not. Return the title of World Champion to the LPL fans. You're getting a look at footage from the Oppo Reno 2, which has been catching our players' arrivals all tournament long. In brilliant fashion, cosplayers too out in droves. The tournament concludes here in a beautiful Accors Hotel Arena where the Parisian fans have not disappointed, with a host of G2 fans and cosplayers making sure that the celebrations are lively. I'm James Dash Patterson, standing alongside Frost, Chad, Deficio, and Vedius. We've made it to the World Finals. It's one best of 5 that separates each of these teams from the Summoner Cup. How we feeling?
I'm getting a little bit nervous.
You got nervous?
Just a little bit.
But we got an hour to go, Deficio. Deep
yeah.
press.
Okay, we got an hour.
Woo!
We got an hour.
We're an hour away from the opening ceremony. The fans are still moving in, but from the sound of it, you wouldn't be able to tell. So it's only going to get louder from here.
Oh, yeah, I expect it to be loud as ever. We were lucky enough to be here in Paris just a year ago for MSI. They blew the roof off the building. I expect more of the same. A reminder that you can celebrate Worlds with all the World's swag available through the World's Pass in client. You can still rep those rewards through November 19th, and that includes new Louis Vuitton skins. For more information, check out all you can recap or reap here in the League client right now. Now, throughout Worlds, I'll have to say, my analysts have gotten more than their fair share of predictions wrong, but thankfully, there's a number of savants out there, as 3 perfect pick'ems are still in play. First up, Last Breath on EUS will be the sole winner if FPX takes this series, while 2 players, one on the Brazilian server and another on EU Northeast, have picked G2 to win it all. Perfect pick'em earns you every single ultimate skin. That's every single one. That's a lot of skins.
We got to backtrack, though, Dash.
Did you say EU West?
Yes.
And did he predict FPX?
That's what he did.
What? Last Breath! What are you doing?
You do what it takes to get perfect pick'ems, Benny. Have you seen the rewards?
He's trying to win no matter what. You know, either G2 wins or he wins.
Clearly a Yasuo main with the word Last Breath. He's just running it down.
If he's not, I'd be disappointed.
I actually found his account. He's not a Yasuo main.
What? Well, now I don't know what to think about Last Breath. But let's talk about the 4 of you and how you've been doing in the pick'ems, huh?
My pick'ems were Uzi level. So for like most of groups, they were really good. And then like as soon as quarterfinals hit, suddenly they were nowhere to be found. So I don't know what happened.
Anyone else feeling good?
I think I'm like,
I was feeling pretty good. My only bad prediction was the Griffin one. That kind of ruined everything. But every other prediction, I've been on point.
All right, well, we already know that this Worlds is like no other, but I wanted to put some numbers to the kind of action that we've seen throughout all of Europe. First up, 99 unique champion presents. That's either picks or bans, but the most unique that we've had across a World Championship ever.
And it feels like the year has been set as the year of flex picks. It really started with G2. They made their splash on the international stage with MSI, and it's only only ramped up from there. Now, to be a top team, you must be able to play a lot of these unique picks in multiple positions across multiple roles.
And we've also seen now over 2 years that teams who try new picks, they get rewarded because they actually end up winning because of it. It's no longer a bad thing to have a, as we used to call it, a cheese pick. It's actually a good thing now to be creative in the way you're playing the game and in your draft. So I think we are seeing teams try more because it's actually the best way to win.
Yeah, and I've been happy with the way the game has looked. Last year was the best Worlds ever in terms of what it felt like gameplay. And on the Balance team for about 8 months, there was definitely a feel that we were trying to kind of keep that meta mostly in place because it was good. And then make a few adjustments along the way. Pantheon got a little away from people. That's obviously not the goal. But overall, 99 picks, about almost exactly the same average game time as last year. And the right things feel like they're being rewarded.
A very healthy place for the game to be.
It wasn't me. It was the team.
Yeah, credit should be extended to many other people and making this a possibility. Next up, we have had some of the bloodiest early games since tracking the stat. 7.3 kills and deaths at 15 minutes is the average here at Worlds. If we look at the combined kills per minute, which looks at the games holistically, not capping at that 15-minute mark, this is the second only to Season 3 Worlds.
And I wonder how much this is inflated by the semi-finals between the two LPL teams.
A little.
Because we had a lot of fighting and killing in that series, but honestly, it's been like this throughout the entirety of the tournament. In group stages, we thought that the meta was about slowing down, scaling, but the moment we got into playoffs, it was back to bloodshed, it was back to fighting.
And VODS, you say that obviously having two LPLs and the semis makes that stat go way up, but in terms of bloody stats and in terms of quickness, it was actually the LEC that was skyrocket before any other region. So it's not just China, it's also Europe that are playing at this breakneck speed.
And Betty, I'm going to be honest, I was cheating at the program monitor to see your shot back there. The fans are already going crazy.
Yeah.
They really like your point.
Yeah,
They were like,
really
VODS.
The games are over an hour away. I wonder if the energy in here could even make teams play a little bit faster than we've seen already.
I mean, when you think about G2, they are a team that gets amped up by the crowd. We saw them against Damwon make a couple of questionable plays. The crowd is a very powerful factor here.
Right. I don't know if
so
we can keep the energy
they asked
through.
the crowd to tone it down, but I will say the opposite. Get loud out there. That's what I want to see. But our third and final statistic here for Worlds 2019, it might end up being the first time, again, since tracking, that 80 season bot laners do not top the damage share charts. Top laners have increased their share of damage in their teams by more than 3 percentage points compared to any other year in history. Currently tied with damage, bot and top, 25.3% for their teams. That's pretty awesome.
And I think there's a couple of different factors here, but primarily the games are going quicker. It's no longer that ardent sensor meta where you're getting to 6 items and the ADC is really who you're playing around in the team fights. Now there's a lot more creative compositions and the games are decided much quicker before ADCs even really turn online.
And I think the key word there is creative compositions. Garen bottom lane is going to hurt the damage share of AD carry. Sion Nautilus mid is also going to help the damage share. And also, tanks not being as prevalent.
I do have a small fun fact. The
I'm
two
ready.
teams in the final do not actually match this. None of them have their top laners as the top damage
So what
share.
are the indications for today's final?
I think you might see more focus around bot lane, obviously. More damage or more carries coming from mid and top.
So in the end, the bot laners may reign supreme. But while we celebrate the competitors charging onto the stage in front of this Parisian crowd, I want to recognize some of the most impactful players of Worlds 2019 that despite their best efforts couldn't quite participate today on stage. They are Clid, The Shy, Tarzan, Showmaker, and Nemesis. First up, SKT's jungler, Clid.
And how can we not talk about this man? Coming into the World Championship, Clid was praised as being one of, if not the best jungler coming into the tournament. SKT evolved their style to play through Clid rather than play through Faker, and that has allowed them to grow so much as a team. Their early game became so much stronger because of this man on your screen.
And the fact of the matter is that alongside names like G2, the other name coming out of analyst's mouth was SKT. And you're only that type of favorite because you have Faker and because you have Clid. He is a phenomenal jungler in a position that was so stacked at this tournament.
And I agree with everything, but I really want to talk about The Shy. While I'm also hearing this behind me. But The Shy was one of the biggest names coming into the tournament. He was one of the biggest. It's actually very hard. He was obviously a mega hyped up name coming into the semifinal as well. And I thought he was going to carry IG. past FPX, but he didn't. He actually ended up costing the team the most as one of the best, if not the best player in the world before that series at least.
Fell just short at the end. Let's talk about Griffin's Tarzan.
Yeah, and I think Tarzan is another player who had a very good most of the World Championship before falling short. I think one of the tragedies of international competition is all these teams are the best of the best, but only one team can be the World Champion. So a player like Tarzan at his first World Championship, yes, he was unable to get through IG in that series, but he's a player who I feel like will be back.
Next up, go ahead.
Another player that we expect to be back is someone like Showmaker, the mid laner for Damwon. During the group stages, I feel like he showed the world why he is considered one of the best Akali players on the planet.
Yeah.
This guy was so influential in not only getting Damwon to the tournament, but is praised as being one of the best performing mid laners that we saw after groups.
You talk about young guns up here on the stage. We've got to go over to Fnatic and look at Nemesis in the mid lane.
And I know the goalpost got moved around for Fnatic. A lot of Fnatic fans probably feel very bittersweet after dropping in the quarters the way that it did go down. But Nemesis really does need to be celebrated. This Fnatic roster rebuilt themselves. He had to fill very big shoes in Caps' footprint, and he did so beautifully. He was probably the most consistent member. He had his hard carry moment. He solo killed Faker 2 times on the Veigar and the Rise. And I think Nimi, hats off to him. He had a good tournament.
Agreed.
And I think while, the tournament may have ended on a sour note for a number of these players, not being here in the World Final, what is consistently impressive and amazing to me about the World Championship is exactly as you talk about, tracking the younger players in their growth from season to season to season to see which one of them use it as a fire to be lit under their asses to go into the next year and say, I'm coming back to the World Championship and I'll prove myself this time around.
And an example of that is look at the G2 team we have playing today. Most of those guys were at Worlds 4 years ago, so it takes a while to make it to the top.
And I also think it's then about the ripples that this moment will create today. Even if G2 don't lift that trophy, the amount of players who now believe that they can. What we saw from MSI, I think all over the world, the revolution is coming for the Western teams especially, and newer players are stepping up and saying, no, I can actually win this.
Yeah, I mean, it started last year when Fnatic made the final and G2 made the semi-final. It made every single European player go, wow, we can actually do the same. Every team was like, we can do the same. Now you just got confirmation that, in fact, you can do it.
Right. And while we talk about for, these G2 players, they're maybe 2, 3, 4 years into that journey. You look across the Rift, and for a number of them at the World Championship, a lot more inexperience, Vedius.
Yeah, for FPX, many of these players were middle-of-the-pack teams domestically. They did not find the same success, and Doinb is a player that we've been looking at for many years with the expectation that he can make it to the World Championship, yet he never has. Now that they're all here, in their first World Final, they have a lot to prove, and they're looking to show it today.
Well, those were some of the standout performers, but when it came to the best moments of Worlds, this is what you had to say on Twitter. First up, Nude Lot GG called out SKT's backdoor versus RNG.
RNG knows this is just not hard forceable.
And they have no teleports, Flowers, so Faker can just do this for free.
Yeah.
The recalls take so long. He even gets to see the recalls. SKT, if they had more pokes, they'd actually be able to stop Mord from going back. That's the inhib, and he's out of there.
Another TP is
they're going for
in.
more.
Oh, they're all going! It's a triple teleport up into the top side for SKT.
They want to win!
Uzi's going legendary. He's able to find the kill onto the Gragas. SKT are now on the Nexus turret.
Will they get back?
SKT, they play the map right, and they find the Nexus.
This was a pretty intense game in the group stages. SKT kept taking a lot of fights that they shouldn't have been taking. RNG almost came back in, and then they realized, we have a TF. There was a famous move named with a TF and like a backdoor or something, and then they put it into place, and they were able to find a very big win in the group stage.
And I remember after this game, everyone at home were like, can we get a best of 7 maybe between these two teams? We sadly didn't even get RNG out of groups, but we could have asked for more.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. This tournament has been so stacked that even in groups, we were getting incredible moments like that. Never mind, also Fnatic been making that crazy miracle run in day 2.
Yep, didn't end there. Next up, iLose sided Viper's pentakill on Xayah.
You saw this idling go under the brush. They know Rookie's behind somewhere. When will they find it? What's the play? Forward they go. They might have knocked him down. Puts on the pool, but is there enough damage? They're going to try. They ult over the top, and it's already a 2 for 0. Viper doesn't die, but one finally comes through. It's up to Jackie Love, but he gets stunned. Clutch from Tarzan, but Morgana can't find it either. Viper stays alive. That's the full pentakill when they needed it most.
Interestingly enough, the only pentakill we've seen at Worlds. And that was a 4v5. Sion was in the bottom lane that whole time, just managing the minion wave when he came back up. So huge play from Viper and Tarzan in that one.
What a scary and nerve-wracking position to be in as an AD carry. I mean,
down 0-2
I was going to
well.
say, and below like 30% health for the entirety of that skirmish. Then Akaze relished in the infamous 2-minute team fight that we had in Invictus Gaming versus Fun Plus Phoenix.
Tian has got himself the flash, he's got himself the smite, the rocket grab comes out, the static field as well. Tian concedes his life. Unable to find the kill, but now the Baron has stopped. Invictus are sending a message. Teleport's not coming in. Here comes LWX. The W's available. He's got flash. He's got killer instinct. But look at the minimap.
Here we go.
That's a pop over the blast cone. Doinb continues to step forward. LWX jumps in with a killer instinct. He's been tagged with a hemo plague, starts getting eaten by the culling. Doinb is able to stay alive in the pit. Here comes Gingoom. He may need to use that death realm, and he does. LWX escapes with his life, and Baron's like, guys, what's up? He resets yet another time. Gingoom almost and does find the solo kill or the kill credit.
I mean, clearly that was just peak League of Legends. It doesn't get better than that.
Right, yeah, as told by Kobe's giggles throughout.
All planned, you know? That's how you're supposed to play the comms.
Not even
Come on.
close.
Can you understand League of Legends, right?
I'm pretty sure
that's
both
how
of
it
these
is.
teams were, back in their scrim rooms for the past week practicing exactly that
100%.
play. Finally, Jules' favorite moment was the god himself striking fear into the hearts of his opponents.
Como suplente, una leyenda. Pro Miss Q.
This was the moment that Faker broke. Promiscu looked him in the eye.
And so did Grabs.
Yeah.
he almost made it through that opening
but
ceremony.
But it was such a powerful statement to make. Look at what I've got. You don't have one.
And it's because G2 beat SKT at MSI. So maybe he's trying to recruit Faker to be sub number 2.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. He's just saying, if you want one of these, just come over to this team.
Right over onto this side of the stage. All of those moments culminated in Madrid, which we touted as the best top 4 that we could have ever imagined. And then lo and behold, every single game delivered.
Yeah, and the only thing they didn't deliver to us were game 5s. Because the Shy, it felt like he would have been able to turn it to a game 5. Some of SKT's early games and Baron acquisitions, you thought they'd be able to take us to a game 5, but the clutch teams were clutch. FPX and G2 closed it out in 4.
And I agree, we would have loved game 5. However, I really liked in this FPX versus IG series that we got to see 2 different styles, even though the teams are from the same region. FPX, it was the smart early game. Roams from the mid lane. IG, pure muscle. Try and destroy the solo lanes, get as far ahead as you can, and it simply did not work. FPX, they could always answer back.
And I feel like we got to see peak FPX. We got to see them turn early game leads into strong advantages. And sure, sometimes it devolved into a lot of team fighting, but to me it felt like that FPX consistently had control in the series, and we really got to see how this team is more than just the sum of its parts. It is a collective team, and they work extremely well as a unit.
And in all honesty, from kind of like the downloading perspective, if you're G2 or SKT at that point looking across, I don't know how much you can actually cipher out of FPX there. The familiarity, the fact that they played multiple times with Invictus Gaming, that series was always going to have a very unique meta, a very unique priority on picks, because those 2 teams knew each other so well.
100%. And yet it felt like IG got surprised when Doinb was moving from mid lane, and they were like, we will start a fight in bot lane. Oh, he showed up and killed us. G2, they have to be ready for that today. He will move, he will come to your lane.
And I think it's so interesting because playing against either G2 or FPX, you can really only prepare for that by playing either G2 or FPX. The champion pools, the way G2 moves around the map, those aren't simulations you can run against any other team. So it's going to be fascinating to watch.
All right, FPX had to go through the defending world champions to get to this point. G2 had to go through one of the strongest teams the world has ever seen in SKT. That, to me, sets up this world final in such a special way that we've discussed multiple times. Nothing can really be taken away from these teams in their journey to this point, and then, therefore, what it would mean if they walked away with this best of 5.
Exactly, and for G2, it was challenging for them. It was not an easy best of 5. The early games looked shaky. They got caught out every now and then, but they showcased what they are so good at, which is playing the map, taking advantage of their creativity, and using the fog of war to their advantage.
So one team had to beat the most legendary organization of all time. The other team had to beat the defending world champions.
Yep.
Sets up the perfect final.
There it is. One person, though, who I know was blowing out his lungs during Sunday's semifinal was G2's founder, Ocelot. So to hear from the emphatic owner, let's send it over to Shox.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm here with G2 Esports' founder and CEO, Carlos Ocelot Rodriguez, ahead of this absolutely epic clash. I know, they're loud already. But first, tell me, Ocelot, what is going through your mind and what are you feeling ahead of this monumental match for your team?
I mean, I've been dreaming with this moment for many years, and even though it's not as a player, it honestly feels just as epic, you know? So I'm just, honestly, I just surrender to all this work we've put throughout the year, and today is the day. The guys are ready, all of us are ready, everybody's ready, we got this.
Can you talk to me about the significance of possibly winning the World Championship in Europe, not just for G2 Esports, but for the entirety of Europe?
For us, this is like, you know, the mile under 4 minute, you know, threshold. If Europe, if the West wins this World Championship now, everybody will be up there believing that it's possible, and that threshold, passing that threshold, is, to me, super important. Do I have the crazy madman behind me?
I think he's there. It's intimidating. What can you tell me about your opponents today? FPX, the champions of the LPL, who have been playing incredibly well.
Yeah, I actually like their approach, you know, it's kind of a fun team as well. I like that they do ridiculous videos, dancing and stuff like that. I really like that. I think that Doinb is going to be the third best mid laner in this series. But it's going to be good for him to spend some time with them, you know, whatever happens next season, you know, Doinb, I'm winking at you. Sure you're watching.
Also still joking. What have you said, or what are you still going to say? Which words of inspiration are you going to pass towards your players before the first game?
Well, you know, everybody expects me to be like, ah, this is the moment, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is that I'll be like, look, guys, like, just have fun. Win or lose, under your terms.
Fantastic. Finally, Ocelot, it's not even full yet, and they've been chanting, "Let's go G2 Esports" the entire time. What would you like to say to the crowd?
Actually, I'm not French, but my wife and son are French. Je n'y veux de bébé, de français. Aujourd'hui, on va marquer l'histoire. Alors Paris, faites du bruit!
They are making noise. Thank you so much, Carlos. The best of luck on the Rift today. We're going to take a small break, but more Worlds Countdown right after this.
We're at the Esports Village at Hotel de Ville, where there's been a lot of esports and league activations leading up to the final. So let's check it out. So thank you for joining me. Can you tell me your name and where do you come from?
My name is Hussam Zarwali. I'm coming from Morocco to watch the finals.
So what do you think about the Esports Village? We have so many community activations. Do you like it?
Yeah, I did everything. It's very good. There's a lot of things to do. And yeah, you meet people also.
Throughout the week, Alienware has been hosting a 1v1 booth where fans have been able to play like the pros on an early access of the Alienware hardware that the pros are going to be playing on next year in the LEC and the LCS. So you just won the 1v1. How was it?
It was good. I play a lot of 1v1 on tournaments, internet. So I have some strats, and it's always feel good to play in front of people.
in addition to Alienware, Red Bull is also present at the Esports Village, giving an opportunity to fans to become the 1v1 champion on the Rift. So Willem, we just have the Axe Gaming booth behind us. Can you explain what you just did? Because I see a cool video behind you. What is it?
It's just you enter in the box and this will create your model 3D and will incorporate you in the game.
There's one last thing you need to see at the Esports Village, and it is this huge burrow behind me. So many cool stuff to do. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome back to Paris, home of the 2019 World Finals. I'm excited to have you back here at the State Farm Analyst Desk, where I am joined by John Needham, head of Global Esports, as the 2019 year approaches its biggest moment. My first question is to you. Having seen the Esports Village and with more investment into pop culture with True Damage, where do you see the fusion of all of these things going for us and for LoL Esports?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of the things I love about what we do with these events is bringing music and entertainment, a great live performance together with the competition itself. So having these pop culture moments, I think, is one of the things we do really well that makes our sport special and this event super special. We want this to be a pop culture moment on the scale of World Cup or in the US, the Super Bowl around the NFL. So that's something we're just going to continue to ramp up every year.
And now we're even pushing the boundaries in terms of adding fashion into all of that.
Yes.
Louis Vuitton, I know that some people were skeptical when they heard that
You
Louis
love that
Vuitton.
partnership.
I'm all about that partnership, let me tell you. But I thought for sure it was just going to be like slapping a logo on a skin.
Yeah.
You maybe a champion comes out skinned up, but designer comes in, designs a one of a kind. We've got capsule collection. These got handed out at the event that have some cool stickers in them. Like, how much farther are we going to push this sponsorship, and is this indicative of what we'll see with other sponsorships as we integrate them into gaming?
Yeah, positively. I mean, the thing we want to do with our sponsors is we want to bring value to our fans. So, you know, working with Louis Vuitton on the Kiana skin and the Senna skin that's coming this next year, something I think is going to be super exciting for our fans. The capsule collection, as you mentioned, the trophy case unveiling today is going to be unbelievable. So I love how deeply integrated, how committed both sides are to this partnership and how we're really working together for our fans, because ultimately it's about them.
And Frost, you baited us. Open this up.
Yeah,
let's
go.
Show me what's inside.
Show the stickers.
I believe everybody who attended today was able to receive one of these. And it is filled with True Damage stickers.
I'm a big sticker fan, and they're nice ones.
I know, so you get to take that home. Lucky you.
And John, I got another question for you, because you were a huge part in the formulation of the LEC over in Europe. And now you're kind of the global head of esports. So kind of divorcing global head of esports from someone who helped found the LEC.
Yes.
How do you feel now about seeing the LEC in their first year in Europe, making the finals and having such an impact?
I mean, I just couldn't be prouder of the Berlin team. They're amazing. And it just goes to show when you kind of let a team just have unfettered creativity, what they can do with the business and with the sport like the LEC. So it's been awesome to see. I started getting super excited at MSI to have NA and EU go to the finals and starting to see competitive parity across now 4 regions in our sport. And I think that's super important. For the Elite Summer Finals, we had millions of fans watching out of China for the first time. And I love that. I think it's just a super healthy thing for our sport. So we're going to continue to build on that. We just need NA to step up.
Yeah, what's up with that? Come on. Where's the...
let's go.
The final of MSI.
Hey, I was watching the Clutch Gaming story this year. I loved it. I really liked TL and Cloud9. So I think there's a lot of good there. They're very close.
We heard what Carlos had to say on the stage, and actually the idea of like the 4-minute threshold and what it means to break a threshold, maybe for Western fans and Western regions. If G2 is capable of doing it today, how that might unlock the LCS and the rest of the West to really go for it.
Yeah, for me, looking at last year, we saw Europe versus China in the final once. We thought, okay, it's been nothing but Korea for 5 years. Now we have something different.
Yes.
To me, this year is more proof that that wasn't a fluke and that we are kind of moving towards a more exciting international ecosystem.
I mean, one of the things I'm most excited and proud of with the LEC is we had 15 rookies start this year in the LEC. It's 100% European players. We set up this system with the regional leagues to use them as talent farms to feed up into the LEC, and it's paying off. So I love that. We just need to figure out, I think, in NA how we set up a similar structure and we develop more NA talent.
And I think part of that parity is the fact that if you look at the LPL, you have all of these geolocation stadiums popping up. You have farmer leagues like the LSPL, LPPL feeding up at LPL. Now you have the ERL leagues with LEC, the franchise system in North America. Like, esports has just continued to build this machine to continue to pump out these types of careers.
Yes. We're about 25 minutes away from the opening ceremony, but the fans themselves here in the arena show no signs of slowing down with their energy. But I want to come to you.
Yes.
Any thoughts here on the way the series might play out today?
There is a right answer. There is a right answer.
I'm going to be biased here. I worked in the EU for 2 years. I love the LEC. I love G2. I love Carlos. And as much as I'm happy with FPX and everything they've done in the tournament so far, and I think they're an amazing team, my heart's with G2.
There you have it.
Hashtag G2 Grand Slam.
And what a story it would be if we saw LPL win last year, LEC win this year, and then we move to Worlds in China next year. That would be a showdown.
There it is.
Take it,
You've got the baguette of support behind you. But with that, our very first prediction of the day has been locked in. We've been enjoying the action every leg of the tournament so far. And some of the biggest fans of our series last Sunday might have been the players themselves as we listen into this Worlds edition of Mic Check from G2 semifinal victory over SKT.
Let's go, G2, plö.
Yeah, because I would say you're literally better than Faker.
싸움 좋은데?
퍽즈 노궁, 퍽즈 노궁, 퍽즈.
퍽즈 봐줘. 나 초시 안 쓸게.
Flash on Nico, flash on Nico, flash on Nico.
Okay, it's hard, it's hard. Ult in 5. If we just wait for my ult, we win. 1 second ult. I go!
Nice.
Just kill the Nexus.
Next. I can't believe it.
Honestly, what a game.
Kill Nexus.
Also kill Nexus. Okay, Leona. Okay, Leona. Nice.
Good job, guys.
이제 살짝 가야 되긴 하거든.
풀이 있을 거야.
이제 갈려줘.
이제 보자.
오케이.
나이스.
나줘.
나이스. 바텀 깨자.
나이스.
용까지 생각해 우리.
Raise flash. I'm still there. I'm not there yet. Guys. And I'm here, coming. Come to me. I feel.
I'm coming around again. I'm on Kai'Sa.
No flash, Kai'Sa.
No flash.
We don't win.
이거 게임 끝낼 수도 있어.
피 너무 많이 나면 안 돼.
노틸.
난 바론부터 먹어봐 진성아.
바론.
나 죽게.
한타 좋아.
오리야 죽었다. 자야.
나 봐줘.
이거 오리야 잠깐 살짝 봐줘.
Rise, no flash.
In one, I can flash.
Yes.
Oh.
Careful.
I saw
He's still on you, but maybe we should go. Come in. There's no flash. Okay, he's flash. I'm not there. I have Outlast.
Yeah. I saw Sparrows. I killed Elise. Elise is dead. I'm just stoning Varus.
Okay, now. I'll see you in the base, I think. Kiana dead. I'll see you in the base. Yeah, I can stop their base. That will see me. I'll stop Varus. I'll stop. Vladimir.
No,
Outlast. No, Outlast.
Nice! Oh, you are so... Let's come down. Guys. No.
Okay, fast handshake, okay? Just stand up and handshake him.
Actually, we can actually win this.
But let's go just want to celebrate maybe.
Guys, good job. Like one more BO5.
Oh my god, we're actually fine.
I'm so...
Maybe we'll for sure win next week though.
Yeah.
It is remarkable to think how far G2 Esports has come, as they are just one best of 5 away from the Grand Slam, claiming every title put before them this year.
And I want to take you back to 2014.
Let's go on a journey.
Long time ago.
Let's go, baby.
Long time ago. Ocelot, he used to be in SK Gaming. They had not completed a season properly. He was actually down in promotion tournament. He stepped away from SK. He founded a name we can't really say, but let's say it once, Gamers 2 back then. He was supposed to be the mid laner who led that team back into the LCS. He gave up on that dream and ended up recruiting Perks eventually to be the mid laner. They qualified in 2016 to join the LCS and rebranded to G2 Esports. Picked up Trick, they suddenly win the first split, then they get Sven and Methi, Expect joins the team as well, and you have this lineup you see on screen now, winning every single title in Europe for 2 years.
2 years of dominance then led into a year of disappointment. Last year in 2018, G2 had to go through an entire restructure. They lost their top, their jungle, and their bot lane. That was when we got to see the introduction of Wonder and Jankos. In their first split, they made it all the way to the finals. They got 3-0'd. In the summer split, they made it to playoffs. They got 3-0'd by Misfits and didn't even make it far. Expectations were that they would not qualify for Worlds. They would not be able to make it. But then we all saw the miracle run happen. Everyone remembers the Heimerdinger. Everyone remembers Perks' LeBlanc, that dramatic defeat over RNG to make it all the way to the semi.
Yeah, that Heimer absolutely smashing Uzi and Ming, and like, it's really been a story about passing the baton. You know, Ocelot passing it to Perks, Perks now passing it to Caps, and we're G2 always going to be chasing that Sven and Mithy and Trick lineup. Would they ever be better than that? And with Caps joining the roster, and in 2019, they smashed everything. This is a supernatural team right now. Their synergy in 0.5 seconds to say, let's do this, to consistently make the right call at the right moments. This is a once-in-a-lifetime team. Soak it up. Europe will never see a team this dominant, this talented, and this good in a long time.
And you kind of have to wonder, like, what is the special thing about G2? Because no one has been able to do the Grand Slam before. I feel like either teams burn out because they're grinding for too long during this long season, or they'll win MSI and kind of buy into their own hype and become complacent. But G2 as a team, I feel like have struck that nearly impossible balance between having fun but also being able to become serious and continue to improve. And there were times in the summer split when they were taking picks from the fans that I thought, hey, maybe this team isn't going to be ready for Worlds. But that's exactly what they needed to make this long run and be one best of 5 away from the Grand Slam.
For me, and obviously I have a much shorter timeline here, I felt like I watched G2 leave for MSI as the villains of Europe, and they came back with the trophy as the champions for Europe. And now that just gets even more cemented today. Win or lose here, lift the cup or not, I think G2 are the champions, the conquerors of Europe.
And those years of incremental improvements is what brought them here to their first World Final. For many Western fans, though, the rise of G2's opponents today could feel like they came out of absolutely nowhere. And Jat, you were able to do a little bit of digging here and give us some info on FPX's rise to dominance.
I mean, funny story. So this story came out of nowhere. So in 2012, when I joined Riot on the live design team, one of my coworkers was a 2400 ELO Tryndamere one-trick.
I've played it. It's terrible.
He was a challenger player, could only play Tryndamere. Anyway, I moved to shoutcasting. He ended up moving back to China. We lost touch, and little did I know, he's now the CEO of FPX. So I got to catch up with him for about 45 minutes this week, and it gave me a better perspective on what FPX's journey has been like. Because I think a lot of people see #1 team from China, oh, just another powerhouse. But no, they were not an elite brand in the LPL. They weren't even a team until 2 years ago. And even a year ago, they weren't top 6. So this team, through a lot of hard work, teamwork, overcoming adversity, and their own international inexperience, is actually a very inspiring story about what they've been able to accomplish up until this point.
Yeah, frankly, FPX weren't relevant to the conversation. It's as you were saying, it was all about the LPL pillars, the RNGs, the IGs, the EDGs, the OMGs, WE. No one really knew who they were, and the cherry on top was picking up Doinb and Tien. Doinb has played on 4 different teams, and he's only ever not made top 2 in a single split. This is his domestic split, because as soon as he moves into playoffs, this guy felt like he was cursed. He could never figure out how to get over that last hurdle, inconvenience, circumstance, unluck, whatever you want to call it. It just hit him right at the final go, except for this time. The winningest team ever in the LPL. They were just shy of the record. He dominated with FPX.
And he just keeps working. This team as well, as the coach they brought over from Flash Wolves, Warhorse, have really molded their team around the way Doinb wants to play and practiced harder. I know it's a bit of a cliche. Every team practices hard. But this team used to turn off the power at 3 a.m. so the players were forced to go to sleep because they only wanted to practice. And then Gimgoon, halfway through the year, complained about that and said, no, I need more practice. So they came to an agreement. Now they leave it on as long as he doesn't become sleep deprived. And they've just been practicing for the whole year.
What is it, Deficio? Work, motivation, improvement, team?
That's how it's done.
That's what it is.
Is that it? Is that the mantra? I think FPX's
saw
mantra
that
is
image,
just...
they're like, yes, that's what we need.
I've got it.
Their mantra was just keep the lights on, please. And I'm sure they have been on all worlds long because this team has really been racking up some stellar performances. For Doinb, though, his eyes are fixed on making sure he's forever recognized as one of the best mid laners of all time.
因为我这次是第一次参加世界赛的嘛，然后很多人都记住，就比如说什么中弹的话，很多人都会第一时间会想Rookie、Caps、Faker 这种选手，但之前没有人会说提Doinb这个选手。但今年世界赛开始之后，很多人会说，哇，Doinb原来这么强吗？Doinb是。更夸张的话，就是还有人说Doinb是之前哪个队的？Doinb打过职业吗？很多人都会这么说，就没有人关心我，就没有人关注我。但希望今年如果我们拿了冠军的话，我觉得很多人会记住我是一个Doinb原来就打了这么多职业，就很不容易就拿了世界赛的冠军。这个选手是很勤奋、很努力的一个选手，我希望大家这么记住我。
And it's actually crazy to think that to a larger Western audience, people didn't really know the name Doinb, but I'm so happy that people have fallen in love with him as quickly as I really did. I watched Doinb debut in 2015. He's played on 4 different teams, Chaogu, JDG, Rogue Warriors, and now FPX. And again, outside of a single split, he always finishes at least top 2. And everyone kept saying, but it's everyone else around him. You know, Doinb's actually just being carried. No. He's the only consistent factor out of 4 junglers, Swift, Flawless, SKT's Clid, and now Tien. Doinb is the consistent factor there to make it to the World Finals. Doinb is the true super carry.
And what's so special about Doinb is he gives inspiration to people like me, the nocturne mid mains of the world, because he showcases that he can force the meta to bend to him.
I knew it. On the world stage, you would find a way.
He does not concede.
I asked him to install a mute button. But they didn't.
But he does not concede to the pressures of the world. He does not play the Akalis. He never played the Silases. He plays the Kleds. He plays the Norlises. And he earns titles, or he earns so many recognition and accolades domestically. And now he showcased it on the international stage.
And I know we talk a lot about the Grand Slam for G2, but Doinb, he's another huge success story this year. Him winning his title, then going to Worlds, now making the World Final. First international tournament he's showing up to, or first international Worlds he's showing up to. International Worlds. Just first Worlds. Let's say that.
We don't count Rift Rivals.
All that ability and personality to boot.
All that.
Could you ask for more?
I just love the fact that he also comes in and he brings something different than so many other star players. The fact he's leading his team in comms and in play.
Well, one person who is not underestimating the super carry is Caps, who minced no words when remarking on his opponent.
So I think going up against FPX, Doinb will be like the main threat on the team. Doinb is probably like the craziest player I will ever face. He likes to pick random champions. He likes to do crazy stuff in game as well. So I'm gonna have to be at my A game if I want to beat him, and I'm gonna have to make sure that he doesn't bully me or my teammates.
I think with all this discussion, it feels only natural to put a spotlight on that mid matchup. Let's talk about how these two players will ultimately come to odds.
Yeah, we know obviously that Doinb wants to play some of these different unique picks. He wants to try and get out of lane and roam, but Caps can do the exact same thing. And funny thing here is Caps is saying, you know, Doinb, he's the weirdest, almost crazy player I've played against. That's what people say about Caps, at least back in Europe, because he also pulls out these unique picks out of nowhere, can play any sort of matchup. And I think in the game itself, Caps can match and do everything Doinb is doing.
And I do want to put a magnifying glass a bit on these champion pools that you're talking about, because I think when people look at Doinb versus Caps, people will be like, okay, what does Caps have prepared for this crazy champion pool? You know, can he deal with Doinb's ocean? And it's not actually an ocean. Doinb, as VODS was just talking about, doesn't play the traditional picks. He doesn't have something like a pocket Syndra. It is the same size champion pool, actually quite narrow, but they're just weird picks. The Malphites, the Rumbles, the Nautiluses, things like that.
And zeroing in on this matchup, I actually wonder if Caps will be the player to play the 100th unique champion at the World Championship, because what has Caps theory crafted if they let through the Predator Rumble or the Nautilus mid? I feel like he's going to have something.
I'm sure he will have something ready. When I look at that champ pool as well, we just showed there, the only thing I don't want to see, weirdly enough, is the Kayle. Like, I'd rather see the Nautilus mid again because I think it actually works so well for him, but Kayle locks him in lane too much.
Yeah.
I need to see Doinb constantly roaming because I think they need that to stop the other lanes from G2.
Well, perhaps more powerful than the mid laners themselves are their biggest fans out there. And that, of course, would be Caps' dad versus Umi, Doinb's wife.
It's so great to see so much support from these two people. Every event that we've gone to so far throughout this tournament, these two have been here cheering, supporting, and it's not just them. The families of both these teams are there right behind them.
And it's kind of rewriting the narrative. It felt for so long that esports was such an uncertain market that kids really didn't have the same support when they decided to kind of go on this path to be a pro player. And now we've come so far in the 10 years that you now see it is far more common to have these gorgeous families around you.
And I can say from an organizational standpoint, now you're not just dealing with the player or the agent. The parent will come in as well and start asking, what's happening here? Where's my kid going to play? And I love that because it actually shows how professional everything is getting and how we're just going at a higher and higher level.
Tremendous support for all of our players around the world, and in particular the 10 that will be taking to the stage tonight. To learn more about Umi and Doinb, though, check out Keen Lamb's article, What We Know Now, on nexus.leagueoflegends.com.
Yeah, I got a chance to read this article. It's great by Keen. He also does 10 thoughts. But
I love 10 thoughts.
Yeah, how many thoughts do you have? But what I liked that he also did in this article was talked about just the uncertainty of Worlds before you go into a match and how afterwards it does seem so clear. And that got me thinking as well about how are we feeling last year before the World Championship versus after. And I feel like we could go through a similar transformation this year.
Yeah, well, let's try and get certain about a few things, though. With the World's opening ceremony brought to you by MasterCard, not too far away, just about 9 minutes, I want to know how you feel about these teams and how they match up lane by lane. We're going to throw up the report card. I'll explain and break it down a little bit for you. We threw in a check mark if a majority of analysts believed that one team was stronger or indexed in that area. So there might be some disagreements, and we can get into that, but this is how it broke down.
But the consensus was that FPX had the jungle support synergy. And this is one of the reasons it looks like they move around the map so well, because one of the best ways that teams have started playing League of Legends, and FPX is the best example of this, is they play through their jungler. They play through TN. They follow him around. They're enabling him, which does show a little bit less preference towards the solo laners, but that's the FPX strength.
And what's fascinating is when you see flexibility from FPX, it actually comes from these two roles. Because if Doinb is running CC in the mid lane, then they roam to him. Whereas if he wants to roam himself, then they go to mid to facilitate his roams to then allow him to come to bot lane. So it's all about enabling their star mid laner to then impact the rest of the map. But all of that comes through these two players. They're effectively the channel that provides the boat to go down it.
And I love the fact that while we have Caps winning the mid lane matchup, it doesn't mean he will have more impact in the game. Because again, Doinb is not playing to win on his own. He's that link between everything FPX are doing, and that's why they're playing to mid lane with jungle and support, and that's how they get ahead in games.
And then if you kind of look across from that, if FPX have like the key facilitators and jungle and support, like you're saying with the lanes, it was Perkz, I think, is a very clear call for us. I don't think there was anyone who was like bot lane, not disputed. Everyone's like, okay, Perkz, probably the stronger of the ADCs. But things do get a bit more mixed when you're looking at champion matchups for Caps versus Doinb, or even Wonder versus Gimgoon.
Yeah, and then the other thing, oh, sorry, just to jump in, the other thing to consider here, well, yes, it might look like 3 points to 2 points. Again, the actual impact factor of any of these positions in any given game can fluctuate and change based on the circumstances.
And I was someone that actually put my point into Gimgoon on the top side, because I think that
whoa,
that's why they put me on the end of the desk. But the thing about Gimgoon is he provides.
They love Gimgoon.
They're a big Gimgoon fan.
Yeah.
But the thing about Gimgoon is he does exactly what he needs for his team, which is play a very effective weak side of the map. And when we compare that to Wonder, who against SKT, he was making individual mistakes. He was getting caught out, and he has not had the most impressive performance, especially when we compare it to last year, where everyone was pointing at him as potentially being the best Western top laner.
Well, that's a very interesting point. But since League has evolved so much over the years, we felt we needed to look a little bit deeper. So we're going to take a look at our second report card here, which goes into some of the more nuanced metrics of a best-of-5. Same explanation still holds true for this one.
And we did end up having a lot more disagreement in terms of our assessment of these things. And I think an important thing to point out, though, is just that both of these teams are great in basically all of these categories.
Yes.
It's just about trying to pick who has that slight edge in each one.
The absence of a check mark does not mean bad at this thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of then trying to find that nuance is what you're trying to talk about. You know, what are the slight differences between these teams? Because it does feel that they play League of Legends, or at least look at the game in a very similar way. And for me, one of the biggest standouts was the fact of team fighting versus split pushing. That we feel very confident that G2 are the better team at kind of playing that 1-3-1, that 1-4, playing the map style that was showcased in their quarterfinal, whereas FPX, and maybe this is just because of the opponents that they had in front of them, like Invictus Gaming, were a bit more reliant on the team fight execution to find their victories instead of creating a macro map performance.
I agree, and I think it's fair to say it's been the same all year for FPX. Once the laning is over and all the roaming stops, it becomes a lot more about what is the next objective. Let's go there as 5, and then let's draft good team fighting comps. Because then you know if the enemy team shows up, you can actually beat them in this fight. And that's what they did against IG. IG kept going for the stronger 1v1s. Does not matter once you're out of laning phase.
A bit of an edge in the early game and team fighting for FPX. We're looking at skirmishing, and both are listed there. But can we define skirmishing a little bit more for me so I have a better understanding of why we consider them to be even in that regard?
I mean, for me, I consider skirmishing like the 2v2s, the 3v3s, as opposed to the big 5v5s. Are we consensus? Everyone nods?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the thing about skirmishing is often it relies a lot on being in the right place at the right time, but also relying a lot more on your individual skill. And it's something that when I looked at G2 with regards to, I felt like it was an easy way for them to build a lot of their early game advantages. It was something that I think benefited them a lot, especially domestically, because of how stronger individually they were than their opposition.
And I think it's about identifying when teams can rely on their skirmishing, like if they're throwing people out to a side lane, perhaps playing split push, and then have someone skirmish on the other hand to make a pick. Whereas again, FPX tend to like to be around Doinb, built up. They play a traditional ADC. You're not going to see the Yasuos or the Syndras coming out of LWX. And when you play traditional ADC, you need to set your line of scrimmage in front of you, have a traditional tank, and kind of fight front to back.
Perfect transition to draft then, because we've had 99 champion presence across this World Championship, but which of these teams uses the draft better?
So this is the one where I ended up voting for G2. I did a ton of draft prep for G2 versus SKT, and the thing I came away with is, wow, it feels like they can play everything. Maybe there's a few questions around, do they want a high priority on Qiyana or Renekton? But those are really just questions you ask at the very end, and they're going to have answers to anything. I can't say the same thing definitively about FPX. Even though they are different, I feel like FPX is less flexible in draft phase, which would give G2 a bit of an edge there for me.
I very much agree with Jat. When you look at FPX, you're thinking the Gangplank or the Mordekaiser top lane. You're thinking the Nautilus flex pick between support and mid lane. Kai'Sa is the go-to AD carry. If they get these picks, they look very strong, but very rarely do these picks actually get taken away from them. The difference is against G2, they know that they can play pretty much everything, so they'll look to take these away.
G2 also fairly unique in how they look at different matchups. So you might think when you're making your draft, okay, we're getting an edge here, we have a good matchup now on top, but then it gets played slightly different by Wonder or by how Jankos plays early, and then it goes in their favor all of a sudden.
2:30 to go for the opening ceremony, but I want to talk about some of the factors in ending a game. Split push, objective control. Those were two of the final things on the report card. Let's talk about how these teams use those.
And I think it's kind of like, what does an LPL team think about in an objective? And I always talk about them as a coliseum. When an LPL team typically sees a dragon or a baron, they're like, ha, the Thunderdome, let's go,
That's
guys.
where we're gonna fight.
Yep.
Exactly, because that's how they move the chains. They do it through winning team fights, and objectives are a perfect arena to make for that, whereas G2 use objectives like pressure points. They make you pick. Do you want this Elder or do you want this Baron? Because in your time that you're deciding, I'm taking your inhib tower. And that's kind of the key difference about how these teams play the map and how they play about objectives.
Well, As you can tell.
I think we're getting close to something exciting.
It's just about time. So drink it in as we make our way towards that MasterCard opening ceremony. This Parisian crowd has already been on fire every step of the way.
And they're only getting louder,
they're getting louder and louder.
Every time we come to Paris, even half a crowd can match so many other stadiums around the world. We're a packed house right now. The excitement is raising. I cannot wait.
This is peak League of Legends, man. Here it is.
I am prepared to lose my voice today. I think all the fans are as well. I hope that our casters are up there doing their warm-ups for a 5-game series, because that's what I'm hoping for. We've had an entire year of League of Legends, and it has brought us to this beautiful Paris venue for a bout between the LEC and the LPL. Before G2 and FPX meet on stage, let's send it over for the 2019 World's Opening Ceremony, presented by MasterCard.